because it doesn't
Right.
mean like they was right. I just like wondering why we have all of this tradition and why they believe like that, and now we.
Right. So the best I can offer on that, and I don't know if there's anybody here who can offer more on that, but the best I can offer on that is they mostly thought that that because of the wisdom of James, because of how well written the document is, that it would have had to have been from a more Hellenized, a more scholarly person. So that would have, and it would have, and so they think it would have been at a later date.
Okay.
When because it was a while later that the area of Galilee was more Hellenized, I've actually been looking a lot into this, especially with the book and trying to find out more information on this. But the best I can come up with is everybody wants it to be that later date because it's such a well written document. I don't know if anybody has any more to add
Yeah.
on to any of that.
Actually, I understood. Yeah. Yeah. I understood.
But one of the things I want to be clear about is Jeff does say in the book that if even if it is James the Just, that doesn't ruin the content of Wisdom for Dissidents. You know, they could have still been going through quite a bit of persecution. So why James the Apostle? Jeff Myers cites Galatians 2:9, saying James was a pillar of the church. He cites Acts 12:2-3, the way that James' death pleased the Jew. The way that James's death pleased the Jews lends credence to James being a prominent leader in the Church of Jerusalem. The Jews were happy about his death, so he would have been a prominent leader. In John 16:3, Jesus says that the Spirit will guide the apostles in truth. In Luke 1:2, we know that Jesus is the Word. In Acts 6:4, the disciples are said to be ministers of the Word. James identifies himself as James, the servant of Jesus, the Word. And the epistle seems to be before the whole debate of faith and works, and that seems to be a big point that Jeff leaned into, and we'll look at that later when we get there. The epistle seems to be before the whole faith and works debate that Paul tackles. It was before that came to the forefront. Okay. So just a couple things on why he doesn't think it's James the Just. An earlier date explains the immediate needs that are addressed, and that's one thing that you find in the epistles is there's a sense of immediacy on them. We use them for a lot of wisdom. We use them for a lot of we expound upon them, but there is a context there. We can see that they're addressing an immediate need. Paul even in one of his letters, I remember Pastor Harold went over it, or Pastor Coupler went over it a few weeks ago, that he addressed two people directly who were causing a problem. He actually used their names, and it was like, "Hey, knock this off," So the book of James is in the long book. It could have been written fairly quickly, especially by Jewish people who were once again people of the book. James the Just had a flourishing community, and the needs addressed in the epistles wouldn't have been as immediate. So this would put it back at being a book of wisdom sayings for a lot of people. James the Just wasn't dealing with the immediate persecution that the earlier church with James the Apostle was dealing with. With James the Apostle, if we look at this as written by James the Apostle, who are we looking? time are we looking at this in the Bible? What's the biblical context? It would have been
the crucifixion.
shortly after the crucifixion, shortly after the persecution of Stephen. So one of the interesting things I was listening to, Jim Dujak, he did a series on this called Sons of Thunder. This same book, and he was using Jeff Meyer's Wisdom for Dissidents. And if you have the chance, maybe I'll put the link up next week. But those are pretty amazing to listen to. Jim Dujak is just a fiery preacher. Even in the Sunday school class, I was listening to it, and I was like, man, I wish I had that gifting. But he was making the point that it would have been the Apostle Paul possibly doing this to the people when they wrote the letter, when he wrote the book of James, that's who would have been persecuting them. So it's just an interesting thing to think of. And when looking at this as wisdom for dissidents, I thought that was pretty prudent to think of it as the Apostle Paul, because the Apostle Paul ended up bending his knee to Jesus, the person who was persecuting them. So we look at the book of James as wisdom for dissidents, and we see that it was the Apostle Paul persecuting them, but we have a full story there. We won. We won that battle. Any thoughts on any of that? Am I going too fast?
I think you're doing
Just
fine.
for slow people, No, yeah.
Sometimes I hear myself talking, I'm like, man, he's saying a lot of words.
Yeah, I think
Okay. Whoa. No. Okay. We're on the right one. Keeping your Herod straight. This is something I had to go through. I thought it'd be helpful for you guys. We're gonna keep our Herod straight, because it's hard to keep the Herod straight. They were kind of a broken family, if you will. They were the people who were put over the Jews, and they were kind of a broken family. They were Edomites. They were Edomites, but they were like a mixed family. They wouldn't have you wouldn't have wanted to go to their house for a Christmas celebration. Let's just say that they didn't get along very well. So they're a messed up family. Herod the First, or Herod the Great, he's the one who ordered all the infants to be slain. Shortly after that, as we know, that Herod died. Then we had Herod Antipas, and he stole his brother Herod II's wife. And I'm not sure if Herod II was ever a ruler. It was kind of a divided kingdom. So when he stole his brother's wife, there was a big war, and Herod Antipas was the one who won. John the Baptist confronted him about stealing his brother's wife, and John the Baptist was beheaded. We remember that whole story. He was also the one who mocked Jesus and sent him back to Pontius Pilate. Herod Agrippa the First, he was the early persecutor of the church, and he was the one who beheaded James the Apostle. Herod Agrippa II was the one who held audience with the Apostle Paul. So those are all and in the Bible, in the Bible, oftentimes we got this Herod, we got that Herod. It's always confusing for me. So I thought this tool would be very helpful for all of you.
it is.
Okay, good.
Are they similar brothers or the sons of the first?
Yeah, Herod and Herod II here, they were brothers. That was the whole problem there. It seems to me that Herod, I'm not sure if it was a name or a title. I can't really speak to that. I tend to think it was a title, just because of this. Two brothers walking around with the same name. It's a little weird.
Oh, so you're saying it's a title like Pharaoh or Caesar?
Yeah. That
Okay.
that's what I tend to think. I couldn't find much on that. I didn't look much into that either.
Yeah. To me, it sounds like it's like a family name, family
Yeah.
specific, not
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
much as Caesar, but
Well, Caesar started off as a family name,
Yes.
Julius,
true.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
and then it became a title.
But anyway, it's interesting. It's interesting that they're Edomites. So that makes their lineage all the way back to Esau. And earlier this week, I was reading about how Esau would break his yoke, the yoke of Israel off of his neck, and they're the chief persecutor of the Israelites for most of their history. In fact, one thing I found recently is the grandson of Esau was Amalek. That's the Amalekites. And if you look into Jewish tradition, any enemy that rises up is considered an Amalekite. They even claim that the Nazis were Amalekites. So if you look into the history of the Amalekites, they were supposed to be destroyed. King Saul didn't destroy them. He left one of them alive. And then you have the Book of Esther, where what was that gentleman's name? Haman. Haman, and he was an Agagite, and the king that was left behind that Saul didn't kill was King Agag. He was slain by Elijah, but when he's called an Agagite, you see that relationship to the Amalekites.
By Samuel, right? He was slain by Samuel.
What did I say?
Elijah.
Samuel. That's correct. I'm sorry, talking too fast, faster than my mind can move.
Sorry, you're fine.
All right, and I made this slide because I thought this would be helpful too. Keeping your Jameses straight. James the Apostle, that was James the Great, son of Zebedee, brother of John,